It is your boy, Baseman Awakens, checking in with you for the latest video on the Baseman Awakens YouTube channel. The title of this video is Black America, SHTF is here. I repeat, Black America, SHTF is here. Now this video is a continuation of the last video I did approximately 2 months ago, titled The Takedown of America. At the end of that video, I talked about how I'll be doing regular updates on what I think or I believe is going on within our society and where that will ultimately take us in the long run. And this video is the first installment of my regular updates. Now, just to give a recap to make sure we're all on the same page, in my last video, I talked about the significance of the takedown of these Confederate monuments that were happening all over the country and the real cause of the civil unrest, i.e., and the agenda that was being pushed by utilizing the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. Since that time, unfortunately, things have gotten a lot worse in our society. The protests, and in some cases the rioting associated with police brutality, have been ongoing. People are still upset about that. The economic fallout of the COVID lockdowns, we're still feeling that. There's been record amounts of unemployment, and unfortunately many Americans are still getting sick and being affected by the actual COVID virus. Within this, I have my predictions for the fall, which means from basically at this point until December or the end of this year. I believe there's going to be more social unrest, specifically riots. And there are a number of things connected to this. As I stated before, we're still feeling the economic fallout of this COVID lockdown. Not necessarily the disease, guys, but the lockdown. And I want to clarify that. I think in August, the federal government put out their official figures for what happened in the second quarter of this year. So the second quarter was, I believe, from March to May of this year. And they said that there was a 32% contraction, 32% shrinkage of the U.S. economy. That economic hit was worse than anything that happened in the Great Depression. Think about that. So the American people are feeling this pain. Within the Black community, since we've always been on the outs, the unemployment rate for Black people, even when the economy was really good, has always been 3 times as high. In certain inner city neighborhoods, the unemployment rate among Black men has been nearly 40%. Within our community, the economic impact has been even worse. I've come across statistics that are saying that at least half of all Black-owned businesses have closed forever because of the lockdown associated with COVID. And I've seen it in the area that I live in. I live in a metro area that Black people are very progressive in terms of owning businesses, generating economic wealth, owning home ownership, and it's very obvious to see that. And the other part of this is obviously the sickness and the deaths associated with COVID. And if we choose to believe the government figures, which I think that we have to keep a critical eye to it, then unfortunately the amount of sick people getting sick and people who have been dying has even been higher within the Black community. So what does this all mean? That means that we are in an environment where people are struggling. They cannot take care of themselves or their family, and they're being forced to stay home because of COVID and the lockdowns. So like in many cases, people are stuck in this pressure cooker type environment, a pressure cooker type environment. And that's just one aspect of what I see coming in the fall. So that's just one aspect that plays into the social unrest, the more protests, and unfortunately more riots and destruction that I see coming. The other aspect to this is the November elections, where we as a nation get to decide who will be president for the next 4 years, whether that be Donald Trump or candidate-elect Joe Biden. Now, in another one of my videos, I talked about how I believe that the Democrats are going to lose the 2020 elections, and my opinion has not changed at all. I think that, unfortunately, due to what I just walked everyone through in terms of the reasons for the social unrest, both Trump and Biden have been playing on this. And what I mean by that is that they both are benefiting from the protests and the rioting. It's helping to rally their base. So if you think about it, on the left, the protests that are being led by Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and other organizations are really giving people an strong emotional reason to vote for Joe Biden, or to at least be attached to the Democratic Party. But the same can be said on the other side, where because of the protests, Trump is positioning himself to be the law and order president, which is typically what the Republicans do, which is also helping to rally his very big base. Now, I know that we're all exposed to what CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News are saying, that Trump, in terms of the poll numbers, it looks like he's going to lose, but I am not buying it, guys. They said the same thing 4 years ago, that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and that silent majority came out and ensured that Trump was the winner. And I still think that's going to happen in November. Now, I know some of you that are listening are probably not convinced, but let me give you another angle to this. Now, I watched both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention that occurred a couple weeks ago. And when I watch these events, I don't just listen to the speeches, but it's also about the themes that they want to convey. And what I got out of it for the Democrats is that they were trying to pass off Joe Biden as the lovable old grandpa that really wants to do right for his family and his community. What I saw for the Republican National Convention was Trump was a hard-nosed leader, alpha type. He has the look, he has the attractive wife, he has the family, he has everybody around him where they know their place. And I would say, watching this, with all this turmoil, people losing their jobs, people are afraid of their future, people are losing family members to COVID, who do you want leading you for the next 4 years? Do you want the lovable old grandpa? Or do you want the alpha that doesn't care how anyone feels, and whatever he says he's going to do gets done? Now, as we all know, these are just images. Now, Trump doesn't achieve everything he's going to do. He's a salesman. He BS's a lot. But it's really about the image. Because when we buy into the image that's being portrayed, we're activating our emotions. We're connecting our emotions to it. And based off of the images that are being both projected, that only reinforced to me that Trump is going to win. All right. So I did the setup for the fall, for the next 4 to 5 months before the end of this year. More social unrest. People are still hurting because of COVID, don't have jobs, can't pay their bills, still getting sick, and people getting riled up over these elections. So what is all this leading to? Unfortunately, guys, I'm looking at the future of our nation, and I don't think the future is going to be very good for most people, in the black community in particular. Unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that this nation is on a terminal decline as a superpower. So in other words, we're going through the same exact things that the British did after World War II. The same thing that the Spaniards did when they stopped being a world power. The Portuguese, the Dutch, the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, aka the Kemetic people. Everybody's had their time in the sun. And America's time in the sun is coming to an end. And that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. The British people, when they lost their empire, the average person in England actually ended up doing better. But the problem here is that our elites, they don't want the average person to do better. And that includes the black community. So what I see coming, based on everything that I've laid out, is an authoritarian, almost like a dictatorship that we're going to be under. And I know it sounds scary, and I know it sounds out there, but Listen, just hear me out and hear what I'm going to lay out to you. So going back to the topic of social unrest, right? Because of the George Floyd murder, Black Lives Matter, Antifa are in the streets demanding justice for George Floyd's family and the countless other victims of police brutality. Out of that, there's been calls for defunding the police. And when I heard that, I was just like, who came up with this idea? And what's the real agenda behind it? Because I know, as a thinking human being, a thinking black man, whenever us as a community are offered a solution, it's not really a solution, but it's usually a way to push an agenda. So when I was thinking about defunding the police, I'm like, one, if they actually do defund the police, is this going to mean that police brutality is going to go away? No. Does it mean that stop and frisk and driving while black is going to go away? No. So what does that mean? That means there's going to be less humans in the streets. But knowing where we are heading as a society, that means that humans as police officers will be replaced by artificial intelligence. It will be replaced by drones flying in the sky with cameras. It's going to be replaced by 5G. It's going to be replaced by Google connecting into law enforcement and giving them all of your information in terms of what you're researching and where you're at all times. And that's what I personally believe this defund the police agenda is about. It's about helping to push the agenda, which is more eyes, 1984, Big Brother on our back. Let me give you some more evidence to back up what I'm saying in terms of this, which is going to lead to, in my opinion, the federalization of law enforcement. No more local police, no more state troopers. They're all going to be working for the feds. And I have more evidence to back this up. I like to watch these, police shows, these fake quote unquote cop type TV shows where they show the police working in local communities, solving crimes and all this other stuff. And I've noticed a few times that I watched it lately that the police, and this is before George Floyd and all this other stuff popped off, I would see the police doing car patrols, foot patrols, bike patrols, and they'd be working very closely with federal law enforcement like the DEA, the FBI, and ICE. And I'm like, so since when do federal agents do patrols in local cities? I was like, this is unusual. Also, I want to add as well, and this started on Obama, that the federal government's been giving as we watch TV and we see, these police officers who are here to, juggle these protests and these riots, they don't look like cops. They actually look like soldiers in the street. And that's actually done by design. Started under the Obama administration, when U.S. was pulling out of Iraq and Afghanistan, all that extra military equipment, like the souped up Jeeps, the helicopters, the M16s, the body armor, and all that, Obama administration said, let's give that to local police departments. So think about this. The first black president, a black man who's well aware of the black community's strained relationship with law enforcement, made the decision to militarize the police. So all the stuff that we saw going on in Ferguson, you can blame that on Obama. A lot of the things that you see going on now didn't start under Trump. They started under Obama. So let's put all this together. We have a defund the police movement that in some localities is actually gaining steam. And those human police officers will be replaced by AI, drones, 5G, and cameras. Now we have, even before George Floyd, we had the feds doing foot patrols, car patrols, bike patrols with local law enforcement. And on top of that, over the last 10 years, the law enforcement has been incrementally becoming more like the military. So you put it all together, we have an incremental process to federalize law enforcement. And what does that mean for the black community? That means that things are not going to get better with our relationship with law enforcement. If you think there's no accountability now for the police that are in your town or city that you pay taxes to, and that the police chief reports to the mayor of the city that you live in, what do you think is going to happen when all these police officers are federalized? Do you think there's going to be any accountability then? So, but the other point I want to cover, or where I think this is leading to, is more about the economy and its effects on Black America. As I stated before, because of COVID, nearly half of all Black-owned businesses, small businesses, have closed forever. We are already dealing with an unemployment rate that, depending on where you live, was 3 or 4 times as high than when compared to the white community. And this is all before COVID. I think as I break down what I've been seeing going on, that COVID is actually leading to a greater concentration of not only money, but power at the top when it comes to our economy. Many corporations have been doing quite well under COVID, such as Amazon, eBay, Zoom, a number of other organizations. So I believe, based on the record amount of small businesses that have been closing and the bailouts and the aid that the Trump administration has been giving to these large corporations, that what our economy is really is being consolidated into is a corporate economy where you're going to have like 50 corporations that pretty much dominate everything, and mom and pops won't exist anymore. And I think COVID is just making it such a hard environment for the average small business owner to operate in. And let's remember, we're in the beginning stages of COVID. So as all these small businesses continue to close, people get laid off, the local towns, cities, and states are going to have to make up for that loss in revenue. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to increase taxes. So that means that the people who do still have jobs, who still do have businesses, are going to be paying more, which means that, again, in such an environment, who ultimately wins? The big guys. So I do believe that we're going to have a federalization of police, even more of a corporate economy. But then the wraparound to this is that we're going to have the U.S. middle class is going to shrink. So we're going to have a small number of elites who are rich, a whole bunch of poor people, and a very small sliver of the middle class. And this is where I want to get to my final point. And my final point is UBI. What is UBI? Universal Basic Income. And this is the endpoint that I believe that our elites, our masters, want to get to. Now, universal basic income is essentially welfare payments for everyone. So under our current system, only people who qualify for welfare are basically people who are really on the outs and outs. And even though I did just say that there's going to be a lot more poor people, but the purpose of UBI is that it's going to be a livable wage. Obviously, there's more details to come on this, but this is something that elites have been talking about for decades. Now, you're probably thinking, well, if all these businesses are closing, people don't have jobs, and they're suffering because of COVID, then what's wrong with UBI? This is the thing. We have to understand how the elites operate. When they offer us things, it's never for our benefit. It's always for their benefit. As I stated before, our society is being restructured into a dictatorship. I just got to call it what it is. Federalization of police, AI, cameras, 5G, corporate economy, high taxes. So the final part of this is UBI, which is the government will give you a weekly income to sustain yourself. But the other side to this is, if you get out of line, i.e. if you're protesting in the street like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, your UBI gets cut off. This is the final step, guys. This is 1984, and if you're not familiar with 1984 or the book Brave New World, make sure you check them out. They have audiobooks on YouTube for free. This is where we're headed. I just gotta call it like how I see it. I cannot sugarcoat it. I'm not here to be Mr. Doom and Gloomer, but this is what it is. This is what my research, this is what me analyzing what I see on TV, in newspapers, from these think tanks, this is where we're headed, guys. And I'm always open to constructive criticism. I'm always open to another perspective. But if you're going to engage me, and I hope you do, just bring facts. Bring facts to contradict what I'm saying. I'm not excited about all the things I'm telling you about. And to be quite honest, I hope I am wrong. I hope I am wrong. I hope by December of 2020 that our economy is back in shape. I hope by 2020 that, you know, the defund police situation actually leads to better conditions between Black America and the police. I hope by the end of this year that the feds are not in the streets policing. I hope by the end of this year that many of these small businesses actually do get the help they need to get back on track. I hope I'm wrong. But you know what? I don't think I am. Now, I know I spent the last 21 minutes giving you a breakdown of what I believe is coming over the next 4 months. I'm really open to hearing your perspectives on this. And there's no easy way to end off this video other than to say, this is what it is. These are my beliefs, and this is not how I feel. But this is the conclusions I've come through based on logic. As my mentor, Neely Fuller, says, logic is the foundation of the universe and our reality. And this is what I've utilized to get to these conclusions I brought out to you. I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. And as I stated before, I will continue to